I'm Dr. Kanwal Khalid. Today's episode is a bit special because I'll be talking about Eid ul-Fitr because these are the days of Eid. During my talks and research, sometimes I have this doubt that I have a bit of a bias towards the local rulers, the rulers who have ruled the subcontinent, regardless of their religion, let it be the Hindus, Muslims, or the Sikhs. I believe that they were very generous and they were very friendly towards their subjects, most of them. Of course, not all of them. But when I was doing my research for this program that I am going to share with you, the program about Eid ul-Fitr, I came across so many references that told me or that informed me that my bias is not that much of inaccurate. And the local rulers had been sharing their wealth with the local population very generously. So let's talk about how our elders celebrated Eid. If I could remember in my house, Eid was a very special occasion, and primarily it was focused on the females of the house who were very much enthusiastic about the cleaning and about the food. The food that was served on Eid day, that was something very special. And when I was looking at the traditions that were being followed till date, I realized that many of them had been with us for the past centuries. And when I looked back in the past, and my research told me that Eid had always been a very special occasion in the subcontinent, especially after the arrival of the Muslims rulers in this area. And when I was studying, I came across the references given by Ibn Battuta. And Ibn Battuta writes about the Tughlaq dynasty, and he described the Eid of that era. And he says that on the last night of Ramadan, the ruler, whoever was the king at that time, he would gather up the courtiers in his court, and they were the ministers, scholars, the religious scholars, historians, poets, writers, and they would sit together. And at that time, at the announcement of the Eid, the king will award them the robes, the khilat, and those were the khilat that were honored to these prominent individuals of the society. On the Eid day, the king would move with a big and extremely elaborated procession towards the mosque or the Eidgah, and the imam and muezzin, they would accompany the king on the elephants, and they were given almost the equal status to the king. Interestingly, when the procession would reach to the mosque or the Eidgah, the king would, stand back, and they would let everyone enter the mosque. And then he was one of the last persons to enter in the mosque, as if he was welcoming his public who were coming for the prayer. So, this was a gesture that would show that the king is the host of that particular namaz. And that is how he honored his subjects at that time. Then, after the Eid prayer, the procession will come back to the fort. And again, the court was held, which was scented by burning oud, alaichi, and amber in the golden stoves. So these were the stoves which were made of gold, and these were the scents which were, uh, you know, uh, uh, um, presented in the court, and rose water was sprinkled. And the sprinklers were most of the time made of silver or gold. If I could remember in my childhood, even in my house, there were the sprinklers who were made of silver. So this was quite a routine at that time, and the courtiers after that would present the gifts to the king, and those gifts were placed in a thal made of gold. A thal is a big flat tray that was used to put the gift there, and as a as a response to those gifts, the king would also give lots of the gold and the coins and the jewels to the courtiers or the people who were coming to his darbar on Eid day. So that was a big occasion for the public as well, because they had the permission that they could approach the king, and they would, whatever they would present to the king, they would get a gift back, which was priced manifold higher than what they have presented at that time. After that, of course, the food was served. The food was on an elaborate affair on the Eid day, and there were the drinks made of kand and different extracts of fruits. Then we had meat dishes, which were of deer, goat, and different birds. We had wheat dishes of many times, and there were bread served on the dastarkhan, at least 20 to 30 types of bread, rice dishes of more than 70 types. I have talked about these things in my previous programs in detail, so you can have a look at that. And then we had dal and vegetable. Dal and vegetable was also an integral part of this dastakhan, and moong ki dal was very favorite. Moong ki dal is basically a split green gram that was served there. Then they had many types of sweets. In the making of sweets, Hindus were the expert, and they had barfi and laddu, and so many types of sweets were served at that time. And then they had the firni, of course, there, and kheer. They were the keys of so many types and of so much variety that was served here. Then, as I said before, kalakan, barfi, and a laddu and murabbe. I tried to get it translated in English, and they was it was written marmalades. But unfortunately, marmalades do not describe what murabba is all about. But the murabba was served there, and the pickles of at least 15 to 20 times, and uh, some other dishes that would accompany this whole affair of the Eid and Dastarkhan. In the evening, it was the time for celebration, and the singers and dancers, they would be invited in the court and they would perform, and everyone would listen to them. Same routine on the second day, and but on the third day, the king would meet only his relatives, and he would perform the nikah ceremony of his relatives. So they literally waited for the Eid ul-Fitr, and then they would have their nikah ceremony performed by the king. So that was something very interesting that I came to know. And on the fourth day, the male servants were freed. And on the fifth day, female servants were freed. And on the sixth day, those freed ghulam and londis, the male servants and the female servants, they were no, they were either being engaged, or the king would have them marry each other. But that was a very special day for the, you can call, a lower class, or the people who had been working for the king, that they would get married. They were first, on the fifth day they were freed, and then on the sixth day they were married to each other. That is something very interesting. And the seventh day was meant only to help the poor. So lots of coal, and the clothes and the edible vegetables that were given to the people who were deserving, and the king would spend the whole day spending in a very generous way to the poor of his area. The same tradition was taken up by his courtiers and the local rulers who were working under him, and they would do the same. They would take up the same tradition, and they will do the same thing in their own regional courts. That's how it has been. During the Firoz Shahi period, the king would meet the courtiers, and then they would go for the Eid prayer. So the darbar was held before the Eid prayer, and the same traditions were being repeated, but in a slightly different manner. But at that time, on his way to the prayer or the Eidgah, the public was showered with the gold coins most of the time. And this tradition was again taken up by the local rulers, and they would do the same. During the Mughal period, the Mufti and Qazi would inform the king about Ru'ya Halal, that the moon has been sighted, and the sighting was announced with the firing of a cannon. And from that moment on, the festivity began both in the ruling class and in the ordinary public. And next day, the king would go for Eid prayer in a huge procession with more than one elephant laden with money, the gold coins or the silver coins that were being distributed among the public who were waiting on the sides of that procession, and they would receive it from the king. After the Eid prayer, Mughal Darbar was held, in which not only courtiers gave the gifts to the king, but the king also gifted the courtiers. And if we look at it, we come across that they were the poets, writers, painters, sculptors, calligraphs, jewelry makers, textile experts, carpet weavers, makers, and so many other artisans. They presented their creations to the king, and they were gifted back by the king very lavishly in the appreciation of what they have created. That is why this is the kind of patronage that was given to the artisans and the artists during the Mughal era and even before that in the Sultanate era. That's the main reason that we come across such amazing art pieces created by these artisans. And then uh, another event that I came across that I really found interesting, and I thought I will share with my audience that when Jama Masjid of Delhi was constructed at that time, so Saadullah Khan and Fazil Khan Khana, they were the two supervisor who were taking care of the construction, and it took 10 lakh rupees and 5,000 masons and sculptors worked for 6 days, 6 years continuously for the construction of that mosque. By the time the mosque was completed, it was nearing Eid ul-Fitr. So Shah Jahan decided that he would say his Eid prayers in the Jama Masjid Delhi. But then Sadullah informed the king that the whole mosque is littered with so much material that was initially being used in the mosque. So he didn't know how to clear that up, and the material was very expensive because there were marble, there were red sandstone, and so much more. So, what the king did was that he announced to the citizens of Delhi that whoever wants to have it, they can take the material away and nobody will charge them even a single penny. Now, you just imagine that there is this expensive marble and so much more is lying around, and the king says that you can have it without paying a single penny. And literally it was a matter of if not few hours but a few days that the whole mosque was cleaned up like anything, and Shah Jahan was able to say his prayer of Eid ul-Fitr in Jame Masjid Delhi when he wanted to have it down. During the period of Alamgir, the Eid was celebrated with grand musical concerts. Yes, musical concerts. Very unbelievable, but this is how the initial years of Alamgir were all about, a great celebration of music and dance and all that. I will definitely talk about Alamgir and his court in some other program, but this is how it was. But in the later years, although he retained musicians like Khushal Khan, Bisram Khan, and Raspin, but he lost his interest in the music, and but they were not very active in his court. But after Alamgir, this music tradition was revived, and the court of Mughals again saw lots of wonderful musicians. And of course, I will talk about those musicians in my some other program. And now, this was the Eid of the courtiers and the kings. Coming to the general public, the Eid was a very celebrated event, and we come across references when they would, most of them would buy new dresses, and the main focus of Eid ul-Fitr was, of course, the food, and sheer khorma was the tradition, and savaiya vermicelli were also very popular. And can you imagine that these two traditions of sheer khorma and savaiya had been going on since the times of Mughal era? See how we have been keeping our traditions with us, which this is a memory of Muslim rulers of the subcontinent. And other interesting dimension of Eid al-Fitr was that there were many fairs, melas were introduced in the subcontinent, especially in Punjab. And there was one particular mela which was very popular. It was called Tur, just Tur. And there was the Tur, the Mela, means the fair of Tur. The Mela was held in the second day of Eid, and it was very popular. And then later on, this fair was taken up by other parts of the subcontinent also. As a result to that, uh, the festivity of Eid ul-Fitr continued to the next day, and the next day was later on until date is called Taru. So the word Taru is originated from the fair of Tur. So this tradition is still going on till date. Um, as I said in the beginning of my program, that one thing I have realized while studying the rulers of the subcontinent, the local rulers of the subcontinent, let it be Hindu, Muslims, or Sikhs, that they were ready to share their wealth at so many occasions. Let it be Eid ul Fitr, Bisakhi, Diwali, Noroz, the Urs, or different fairs. These were the occasions when they would spread or distribute the money to the general public, so much so that I come across many references when it was the marriage of the prince, or again, the whole city was included in the festivity, and in many marriages, they were fed like for 1 week, and no one cooked in their houses at that time period. I find it very heartwarming because these were the rulers who were ready to share their wealth among their subjects. They were very generous about it. Again, I will say not all of them, but most of them. These were the local rulers who loved and appreciated their subjects, and they were very generous in sharing whatever they had in their toshakhanas. Um, I wish we would had the same days during the colonial period, because that was the time the resources which were given to the rulers were meant only for the rulers, and the general public were deprived of all these luxuries or festivities of the festivals. At the end, I remember there was this short story written by Munshi Premchand by the name of Kafan, and in that short story, uh, there is a character, his name is Kisu, and he says that the last time I had good meal was the wedding of the son of the Jagirdar. So the food that he had on the wedding of the son of Jagirdar, he still remembered after so many years. If you haven't read the story, do read that. And that gave me an insight of that era when everybody could go and attend the weddings of the rich. If you think of it now, it's literally impossible to do that. At the end, I'll say Eid Mubarak to all my viewers.